So let's talk about Tron Ares and why I don't think it's a terrible film. It's not a great film, it's not even a good film, but it's not a terrible film. If you're looking for a film to turn your brain off for a little while, you could do a lot worse. But that right there may be why every Tron fan in the world wants to start pitching frisbees at the creators of Ares, because that's not what Tron was ever about. Okay, just so you know me a little bit, so you understand my age, my views of computers, etc., I am a little older than the original Tron film. Not by much. If my parents took me to see it, then I wouldn't remember, because all I would be doing in the theater is crying and pooping. Something I was still doing in the middle of Tron Ares, so not much has changed. But seriously, I didn't really watch it until I was like in my 20s when the hype of the DVD came out, so I rented it. I was excited to watch it after I finished eating my dinner and then came down with the migraine during dinner. And folks, if there's one movie you don't ever want to watch with a migraine, it's the freaking original Tron movie. Fortunately, it was included in Kingdom Hearts 2, and that had me go out and stream it again, and I did enjoy it second time around without that migraine. Legacy came out sometime later, and I thought it was a pretty decent film. Again, not one of my favorites, but pretty decent. Unfortunately, I only got to watch it in 2D. I hear the 3D is good, and they did the same thing with 3D that The Wizard of Oz did with Technicolor. The regular world is 2D, but when you jump into the grid, it becomes a fully 3D experience. But my thought is they overcorrected a bit from the original. The world they built is a solid one, and one I would love them to go back and play in. But the fact that they kind of only have this black and white color scheme does make it boring to the eyes compared to the original Tron. Plus, I have keratoconus, so black on white always comes out as blurry to me. But both gave you a fully realized world that helped inspire other movies and properties with the same idea. Reboot, Digimon, Mega Man Battle Network, hell, even Hyperdimensional Neptunius series has made shoutouts to the original Tron. It's been that influential of a movie, despite it never being a big hit or a big franchise. And another way to show it's influential is this game I've been showing in the background, Tron 2.0. This game came out 20 years after the film, before any sequels came out, and it was faithful to the lore because they wanted to create a good game. And that's the problem with Ares. It has none of that. It's just a forgettable popcorn flick. I don't see anyone making mentions of it in games or anime 20 years from now. I don't see Ares ever teaming up with Sora in Kingdom Hearts, and I don't see a game trying to be as faithful to it 20 years later. It's not a bad popcorn flick again, but it is a popcorn flick and nothing else. Nothing here elevates it beyond that. It expects you to turn your brain off. The last two Tron movies may have not soared to the heavens like they wanted to, but they had the ambition, and you expected you to think while you watched it. Even if they weren't always the most exciting movies to ever come out, you watched them, you were engrossed in a movie, and it was a total fantasy, and not one that involved the usual sword and sorcery. Tron Ares barely flutters past the ground. The other two may not have been huge box office hits, but they did inspire other creations that went on to success. This ain't going to inspire anything but parodies. Well, let's recap, and I will have a counter up here that will go along between things that Tron fans should be pissed about because it ignores lore, as well as things that are just wrong with the movie, and I think they should have been fixed that may have fit in with the Tron movie, but it's still a bad plan to do this. And since these are my personal opinions, some mistakes will count for more than one if I think they're incredibly stupid. And there's a lot of stupid things in this movie. Okay, if you're going in expecting any of the questions that you may have had at the end of Legacy, like is Flynn still alive? Is Tron still alive? What does it mean to have Quorra, and what advancement does she bring to humanity when she left the grid? And what does it mean for Sam Flynn and what he can do at Incom? Well, don't, because none of that matters, and the writers of the movies don't care about this. It's completely shoved under the rug. The movie is basically about the new income CEO, Eve Kim, because Sam Flynn just all of a sudden stepped down for no explained reason. She's exploring how she can export things from the grid to real life so she can create almost anything from nothing. However, exporting things from the grid that aren't human cause them to break down in 30 minutes. Oh, I'm sorry, it's actually 29. It's an arbitrary bullshit time limit. That would be more fun if the timer appeared on the hand and the message said, "From the Reapers." Anyways, the rival company created by Dillinger from the first movie that is now run by his son or grandson, and then his wife, daughter, whoever the hell Gillian Anderson is supposed to be playing. And her character is probably the best character in the movie that isn't there for a quick paycheck and cameo. Anyways, they're trying to find a way to get the computer programs and weapons out so they can replace soldiers with digitized warriors that if they get killed, they can just be re-resed in the computer and brought out again. The problem is that any soldiers they bring out can only last 30 minutes before being disintegrated. And Dillinger's soldier and general program managing his system is Ares, the star of the movie that he wants to bring to the real world. And the few times Ares has been into the real world, he has experienced sensations and is starting to want to become human. By the way, the only way to talk to these complex AI characters that can become human and even have human conversations in the real world is to use Linux Bash. At any rate, both Eve's and Dillinger's problems can be solved if they can find the permanence code created by Flynn in the 80s, and Eve manages to track it down. And maybe it's because I owned an Apple II when I grew up. Maybe it's because I know that the Apple II discs don't have enough space to even hold a YouTube thumbnail. But the fact that the permanence code shows up as a 3D double helix is just stupid in my opinion. At any rate, she finds it. Ares learns of it. Ares and another program called Athena, don't you get it? They're both Greek gods of war, are sent to the real world to try to capture and put her in Dillinger's network. And because the lasers that zap you to the cyber world are now portable, they eventually find a way to zap her into the digital world. Where if Ares finds to extract the permanence code from her would mean killing her. So Ares decides to defy his creator and help her escape. Cut off from the Dillinger's computer, that means he only has 30 minutes to find the permanence code before Ares breaks down, and this time he won't be resurrected in the machine, and they beam right into Dillinger's lab. Yeah, that's so retarded, I'm giving it 10 strikes on my own personal counter. And they only have 30 minutes to get to Incom and get Ares into the original Tron world so he can find some sort of artifact of Flynn that has some backup of the permanence code so Eve didn't even have to go globetrotting to find it. Ugh. After 30 minutes of car chasing and just talking so we can find out that Ares is a changed program due to the lines "I can trust you," maybe. Yeah, that's the extent of their relationship right there. Anyways, they send him into the 80s world of Tron, which is a really cool looking effect, where he encounters a program that looks like Kevin Flynn that Flynn made 30 years ago, but looks like Jeff Bridges now. I guess they couldn't afford any uncanny valley anti-aging technology for this, could they? After convincing the Flynn program he gets the permanence code, that makes him a real boy. Which is good, because Athena's off the grid, gone completely insane, and is trying to Skynet the whole world, and has killed Gillian Anderson's character. I am so saddened by this loss. I felt like crying. I knew this character so well. Anyway, she's now out to kill Eve because she wants the permanence code, but unlike Ares is learning empathy, she just wants power. Of course, Ares shows up and whoops her butt and stalls the other programs that are attacking out past their 30 minutes expiration mark, and they all end up disintegrating, Well, people at Incom somehow hacked Dillinger's system so they no longer respawn inside his system, meaning they're permadead. However, the system still works well enough for when the authorities arrive to arrest Dillinger for almost releasing Armageddon. He escapes into the cyber world where he finds a disc from the original Tron that turns him into Sark. You know, the toady from the original Tron? Well, Ares goes globetrotting. Okay, so let's unpack what went wrong and how I would fix it. First off, I should say Jared Leto is not the problem. As much as he deserves to be mocked for his behavior on the Suicide Squad, plus other issues, it's not his acting abilities that's the reason that Tron Ares sucks. Outside of Jeff Bridges' brief cameo, he's probably the only person I felt like he cared and was giving it their all. Nope. The issue is with the script and story. Let's talk about Eve Kim, who has the personality of a block of wood. She's the new CEO, which I think is my immediate problem. It's probably one of the last breaths of DEI going on, but we have to replace the CEO who is a man with a woman, having her as a main protag, and all that would be fine, but making her the CEO and the leader of the company means she doesn't have any goals or aspirations to go. There's nowhere to go up for her success. She's trying to complete a goal for her late sister, but we never learn about the sister, so we never care. Like most strong female characters created by DEI, she has no room to grow because she can't have any faults outside of the occasional bout of stupidity needed to move the plot forward. Anyways, I always thought having Flynn the CEO of Income was stupid in Tron Legacy. If there was one character that I thought would have made a good leadership and good CEO, it would have been Alan, the creator of Tron. Flynn was too unstable to take on the role of leading a giant tech corporation. Have Alan handle the business, Flynn handle the creation, and have the two play off each other, and when Flynn disappear, have Alan look at Sam as the next Flynn and wanting him to join Income so he can bring out the best of his friend's son would have made a better story in Legacy. And then you could have Alan stepping down on CEO here because, well, he's in his 70s and he now just wants to retire and spend time with his family. This way makes sense, and she would want to find the permanence code and finish her research so she could have her goal to either become CEO or top leadership position open up to her. On top of that, CEOs don't have time to be creative. They got to run the large company and manage the other creatives. It helps if they understand how the sausage is made, but it's not in their job to make the sausage, but to run the company. In other words, Flynn would not have had time to create the grid he made in Tron Legacy if he was actually a CEO of a large publicly traded tech firm. Anyways, then you can have the Dillinger from Legacy who works for the company come in and be the villain, wanting to use her technologies for weapons, but you could humanize him more and not have the murdering farce of a puppet that we have here. Creating artificial soldiers so real people wouldn't die could be humanitarian in his eyes without realizing that these things could easily turn around and kill their creator. It would set up the dynamic. And it would also make more sense. One of the things Tron Ares forgets is the Dillinger from the first Tron was a complete fraud. He wasn't an idiot per se, he was sneaky and clever in his own way, but he only got where he was due to theft, and he was completely under the thumb of the MCP. So saying he could spring up his own giant tech company from the ground to compete with Flynn in income, that's a bit much. Everything else in the movie I say is okay. Having him send out Ares to try to capture Eve as his rival at Incom when she finds the code would be okay. But I would change it once we get in the grid. Once she's in the grid, she stays in the grid for most of the rest of the film. You see, the escape scene from Dillinger's grid is the best part of a movie. I just wanted to stay in this world and explore. I mean, you see these things like updated solar sailors and cityscapes that are so alien and brings up questions. How do the programs live under Dillinger? What makes the Ares and Athena and the rest of them tick. There's a new world with both old and new technology in it. Let's stop and explore this. But instead it was, nope, back to the human world in less than 5 minutes for a car chase and road trip scene we could get in any other movie. So it would have been better if Ares just stuck in his world, and maybe we could have him and Eve find a way to communicate to the world outside and have them set up and transfer them over the 1980s network in the original world of Tron, where she can go home and he can recover the code he needs to stop Athena. The movie could stop and breathe for a few minutes, give us time to explore a fantasy world and think and build these characters up. Her being in his world and him protecting her from dangers in his world would definitely be a sign that she could trust him with the permanence code, rather than a very generic road trip scene where she talks to Ares, who, since she was his enemy and target, studied everything he could about her while they hurried to income so they can put him back into the computer before his timer runs out and he gets deleted. I would still have Athena and Dillinger's other creations go out of control, but he calls in and starts asking for help from Kim. Then the last battle could happen in the real world, but I would leave the larger ships outside because, yeah, how are you able to create one of those large recognizer ships they fly around in a small warehouse? Afterwards, I have Ares still run away, but Eve promoted to top programmer, and maybe somewhere we would find out what happened to Sam that may impact the next sequel. It would be far better sequel bait than the return of Sark, because Sark was such a memorable character in the original. Good God. Yeah, there's how I would fix it. We don't need a rival corporation, and we get some time to explore both the 80s grid and Dillinger's grid so we understand and have time to stop and think about what's going on, why this world works this way, and what do these programs think and how do they tick, and give time to think about what's going on and happening. Again, if you're looking for a popcorn turn your brain off action movie, there are worse. It's not the worst Disney movie I've seen this year. I may have caught myself checking my watch once or twice watching this, but I didn't fall asleep. I can't say the same thing about Freakier Friday. What's next for the Tron franchise? Well, I have a feeling it's going to be shelved for the next 20 years at least. But if we get it back, it's going to have to be rebooted somehow. And with the focus on computers, field that is always changing, that's going to be hard. The original Tron was made back in the early 80s, where the computer sci-fi world made more sense. Computers were new, and networking professionals all agreed that having 4 billion IPv4 addresses was overkill and we would never run out of them. With that said, Tron-less Tron was probably that way because the guy who played Tron, Bruce Boxleitner, is in his 70s, and that's a bit old to be jumping around in a skin-tight suit that you have to be careful because the light diodes on them could easily break, and he may have to bow out of the franchise altogether. But to be honest, I'm just not seeing any way forward for this franchise, which is a shame. I would rather have it go out on a high note rather than Tron Ares. As it stands, Ares isn't the worst movie, and if you have Disney Plus and can still afford Disney Plus and want to wait for streaming, you're not missing anything. And it's not a bad popcorn night flick, but if you're looking for something to immerse yourself in a whole new world, this ain't it. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below.